I just got a couple of very brief questions. Do you believe there are al-Qaeda cells operating now in this country?
Governor, I'd be willing to address that. There are clearly individuals who are currently under investigation by the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Forces, in the United States who we have great concern about, some of whom may be considered operatives. There are a much greater number of those who are facilitators in some respect, fundraisers, recruiters, who we also assess as being potential operatives, but it's a question of when they cross that line. The details of which I think we've discussed in closed session with staff, and be glad to provide more information on that.
I wasn't interested in classified information, just if you believed that there were cells operating in this country.
Absolutely.
The rest of you?
Yeah. Through the investigations that we have done prior to 9/11, it was clear to us, at least traditionally, that any al-Qaeda affiliates based in the United States, resident here, whether citizens or not, tended to be people who were looked to by the organization perhaps as a logistics assistance, and not for operational purposes. There was a fear that any U.S.-based al-Qaeda affiliate would already have been discovered by security, by the FBI, by the CIA, and that to involve them in any operational plans would breach the operational security of whatever planned operation they might have. And in fact, after 9/11, when the photographs of the 19 hijackers were shown to one of these al-Qaeda members, he said, "See, I knew I wouldn't recognize any of them because they would never send anyone over here who would know me." So the threat is going to come from the outside, most likely.
Fitzgerald?
Yeah, I would also assume there are cells here until, and I don't know how we would ever prove otherwise. And I think the danger we have is we obviously, as Mr. Pistole said, you identify who you suspect might be a cell or who you might know to be a cell. But we have to recognize that there are things that we can't assume that we know everything. And so I think we always have to operate in the assumption that there could be people out there that we don't know about.
You would agree, Dr. Kean?
Yes, although I don't have a lot of intelligence to back it up with.
All right.
Governor, if I could just add to that, the issue of whether there are al-Qaeda sleeper cells, if you will, here, and the issue of hardened targets, which Ted mentioned. I think the fact that last Friday at the National Cathedral, if there's not a better target in the United States or worldwide for al-Qaeda to hit, last Friday for the service, where a number of you were present, world leaders, obviously U.S. government leaders, the fact that al-Qaeda did not attempt anything to our knowledge, I think is indicative, one, of the fact that when you harden targets, al-Qaeda will go elsewhere, and that there is a result of hardening targets that we have seen, at least from information that we have obtained post 9/11. The other aspect is it may indicate a diminished capacity within the United States for al-Qaeda to hit substantially hardened targets, but that's something that we're still assessing.
Would you suspect that there will be a major attack within the next year or two, just from your information and your work, and your knowledge of this organization and its capabilities?
We are currently dealing with threat information that pertains to the next several months, or the end of the year, if you will, based on several streams of reporting that the Attorney General referred to in a press conference where he had to be on the lookout notices for the 7 individuals. So we are clearly looking at that closely. There is indication that al-Qaeda wants to hit the U.S. hard, as the Attorney General mentioned, in the next several months, and we are taking a number of steps to address that.
Just really one final question for you all. We're charged with trying to make recommendations to make the country safer. Would each of you have one recommendation that we should pursue, that we could make in our report, which, since you're out there in the field really doing the work, probably know better than anybody else, what could we recommend that would make your job easier and America safer?
Since you asked, I was going to bite my tongue, but I would strongly urge you to think very, very long and hard before you think about the MI5 option. And my concern is if you create another division in government, I'd be worried about tearing down a wall and then digging a moat. because if there's a wall is gone, that the FBI can share information, but then the information is now put in a different agency, people have to decide what's intelligence versus what's evidence when it's information. I'd be very concerned that we would think we're making things better, but we'd actually be making things worse and putting it back to the way it was.
Okay, that's a recommendation you don't want us to make. What recommendation would you like us to make? Or anybody?
Sure.
Drawing on an idea presented by Senator Kerry, or touched on, that it might be do well to consider the intelligence community as an integrated body of a number of different agencies, and then in times of crisis or times of need for information, to consider the experts in those organizations, regardless of where they come from. Go to your best source.
Okay. Dr. Kay?
The only recommendation that I would make is one which, and purely parochial interest here, but it's one where we continue to strengthen our intelligence agencies to enable them to do the job that they are supposed to do, both from an analytical perspective in terms of the CIA as well as an operational perspective, that we have enough people and enough resources. I think that's what we need.
I will make an affirmative recommendation.
Okay.
If I were to be an immigration inspector at the border, the one thing I'd like to know is if someone's been to a training camp. And I don't know if we still ask the question whether or not anyone's ever been a member of a communist party when they immigrate to our shores, but that threat is gone. And why not ask people when they come to our country to seek to be visitors whether they've been to a military training camp and whether they've been to one in Afghanistan? Now, it wouldn't be disqualifying. They could explain why it is they went there, and we can make an informed decision whether to let them in. But if they identify themselves, we could decide to give them more attention and merit closer scrutiny as to when they went and who they went with. And if they should come in and lie, which is perfectly understandable that they might lie about that, then that would give us a reason to throw them out of the country. If we could prove that, in fact, this person came in under false pretenses, we can get rid of them. But that, to me, might be one of the most important questions we'd want to know about someone coming into our country, so why not put it on the form?